Hi, I'm Jenni Zylka from the Panorama Selection Committee, and I'm very happy to welcome Alejandra Márquez Abella, the director of the film Northern Skies Over Empty Space, El Norte, Sobre, Vacío, which will be screened in this year's Panorama section. Nice to meet you, Alejandra.
Nice to meet you, Jenny.
Thank you very much for bringing this film to Panorama. It's really impressive.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And before we talk about the film, let's maybe get into the mood and see a short clip of your film.
Es cierto que Rosal ya no da flores y el amor de mis amores nunca más ha de volver. Los niños me preguntan por su madre cuando miran que su padre ya se muere de llorar. Quisiera que me hicieras mucha falta y gritarte que regreses, pero aquí no hay novedad. No te preocupes por mí, aquí todo sigue igual como cuando estabas tú.
We see a lot of men with hats, Mexican men with hats, and the story is about this Mexican family. And about patriarchy, of course, and also about the employees of this family. Maybe you can say something about what made you wanting to tell the story.
This was a big anecdote that actually happened like 10 years ago in the north of Mexico, in Tamaulipas. And it was a very famous anecdote about this guy who had to defend his territory, his house, from some criminal group, and he didn't succeed in that action, but he was praised as this big heroic man who defended his family and who was, very courageous. And so when the producers came to me with this story, I was very interested in the idea of questioning courage, heroism. That's a very Mexican story as well. That's a very Pancho Villa, that's in our DNA. And so I didn't want to tell this story in the way that it has been told too many times in our history and in our literature and in our cinema. I wanted to see what happened if we just questioned what is heroism about, what is courage about, where does that come from, and how does that work on a man's heart and mind and family?
Yes, and you choose to have two protagonists who are very heroic in their own way. The one is Reynaldo, this head of this family, who owns the farm and is telling the story about the orange tree that is old and belongs to the family, and also the employee Rosa, which is from a different background, and they're both very heroic, and they have some kind of interesting relationship. Can you tell something more about these two?
Yeah, I think the film is very much about their relationship, mostly. The big anecdote relies behind the relationship that these two have, and we come to watch it and to live it throughout the film. I think that's the main thing that I was interested in, seeing how we attach heroism with a very manly figure every time, and Rosa is all about questioning that. She's putting that into she doubts that, she makes us doubt what we assume should be, courage and heroism.
Can you say something more about the hierarchy? Because she is working for him, but still she's also kind of saving him. So where does this come from as an idea?
Yeah, I'm very much attracted to subjects about class and race in Mexico. I think that's a big subject and a big issue in this country. And in the north, Tamaulipas is and Nuevo León is very close to Texas. I think that this is the same kind of world, and I think that she's an employee. She is a lower class, but and to me, what was interesting is to raise the question of who is who is the owner of the land? You know, whose land is this? I mean, and in every way, right? Is the land from who bought it, who inherited it, who works in it, who lives in it, like the animals, or you know, who's the land? Who is the owner of the land? And that's a big question in the film as well. And I think that's it was an interesting question for me to ask from different places, right? And the hierarchy and the, of course, working class in this rural Mexico was a big thing for me.
What I loved really very much about your film was this use of symbolism on different levels. First, there are a lot of animals. You mentioned the animals earlier. There are so many animals, of course, goats and pigs and the hawk and the deer and a centipede and the spider. So a lot of animals, dead ones and living ones. And that made me think of, you know, almost a Vanitas still painting or something with a lot of symbols for decay or for transience. So maybe you can say something about this use of symbolism, the animals or animals that are dead.
Yeah, again, the starting point was asking who is the owner of the land, and how anthropocentrism has made us believe that we live in this planet and we own this planet as humans. And that has a big connection with patriarchy as well, I think. But to me, the animals as witnesses, you know, and there's different kinds of animals in this farm, as you say. You have the prisoners and you have the savages, right? The ones who are caged and who living in these closed environments like goats and horses and cows, and the other ones who are rebels, right? Who live and who are free and come and go as they want. So this was very interesting to me just to think about it, and then living in Tamaulipas, shooting the film. Because I live in Mexico City, and of course this is a very different environment, and you make judgments and criticisms about how people deal with animals when you're not there, you're not living that life. And when I was there shooting, I learned a lot about how people there, it is a place that has it's not an agricultural place. It's very difficult to grow food. So they rely on animals. They're very much of carnivores, you know, they eat the animals. That's the food over there. So I was very impressed to just see how that works in a different set of conditions. And of course, living there, knowing the place and the animals was different. The frog, which is a big symbolism in the film, was the deadliest of all, because we had spiders, we had snakes. I mean, it was a tough fauna. Dealing with the fauna was tough, but the frogs were the worst because they were poisonous frogs that actually, big frogs, which actually can make a lot of harm. So to me, that was a very nice approach to capturing evilness, right? What's evil? That's evil. A frog can be evil, and that's, it's not a snake, it's not a scorpion, you know that set of obvious animals that makes us think about evil, and then meeting these frogs was very interesting, because to me it was like, so that doesn't look too menacing, but it was. They were the worst. So it was interesting.
And these animals also seem to have a kind of foreshadowing function, because we see a lot of, for example, there's this very impressive scene where somebody is killing the goat and there's a pig waiting in line to be killed. And you see that the pig is frightened. And of course, that in a way, for me, it meant, okay, so we are all waiting for that something terrible is happening. Or when you see the spider and then you see the net where there are some victims in it. So can you say something about this function of foreshadowing evil?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was all about creating an atmosphere and creating something that I liked to call the animal gaze, you know, the perspective of the animals, to talk a little bit about the layers of violence that that cross our lives, right? Because we talk a lot in Mexico, Latin America, of course, about the big violence that criminal groups, bring to our societies, and it's a big problem. But we don't talk sufficiently about the other violences that are in our society, which are how we educate our kids, what are the means that we use to bring us food to our tables. That's a lot of violence as well. So I wanted to use the animals to sort of make the audience think about that. And I think it's a little bit, of course, about a Pavlovian effect, whenever you see the frog, something's about to happen.
Bad happen, yeah. Before we talk more about violence, we can see another clip with the humans, just to get to know your protagonist. Please, a second clip.
Como que está bien gacha la calor, ¿no? Yo creo que hay que irnos para adentro.
Hombre, si estamos a todo dar aquí afuerita.
Rey, no, vengan, no, tráigase a los niños, por favor, tráigase a los niños. Rey, vente, Elías. La niña, Raúl. Elías, vente, Elías.
Elías. Órale.
Me habías de abandonar, ¿quién iba a pensar que un día por ti iba a llorar?
¿Cómo está? ¿Don Reinaldo va?
¿Qué ole?
Ricardo Guzmán. No, es que en el pueblo está todo bien pinche cerrado y pues queríamos ver si nos invitaba a un taco, ¿va?
A ver, Tello. Échales una riñonadita aquí a los muchachos.
Riñonada no, ponle paleta, compa.
Ay, chis. Pues, ¿quiénes son ustedes o qué?
No. Lo que es, nada, andamos acá guachando la zona. Ya ve que está bien peligroso.
So we have seen the frog coming together with the bad guy who is threatening Reinaldo, one of the protagonists, and we have seen Rosa too. And since you mentioned the subject of violence, of course, I found it interesting that there are some bad people coming, but inside the family, there's also violence, of course, and there are also. Maybe you can say something more about that, about the violence in the family.
That was a big thing for me. It was important to speak about how violence is breeded from the beginning, from the way we treat our children, what I was saying, the way we bring food to our tables, the way we don't accept people for what they are, etc. Right? There are many layers to violence, and of course, this is the final expression of it. This is the one that we see in the papers and in the news, and the one that we condemn most of the time. But I think that violence is all around us, and we are not we don't see it that much. And I wanted to also bring this into the screen through a game or playing with the genre of Western, which is the genre that, made masculinity what it is now. Yeah. Not just represented it, but it built masculinity in the last century at least. So men were educated through and with these films throughout the century. And so I wanted to play with the genre to sort of bring this into a larger criticism or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I just wanted to say. There's so much toxic masculinity. We see it in this little clip, and a little boy is crying because this goat is slaughtered, and they say, "Oh, don't cry, be a man." But maybe you can say something more about the cast. I found it very natural, the way they act with each other, the way they talk, and in the background and in the foreground at the same time. And it was really like going with a very kind of fluid camera into this family, very, very close to them. Maybe you can say something about that.
The film was very hard to shoot. We had to go to Tamaulipas, which is actually a very violent place. It's very violent in many ways. There are criminal groups, but the weather over there is very violent. The landscape is very violent. The vegetation is very violent. The animals everything is hard. So I think that makes a company, come together. And I think that was a very important part of the film. We became a company. I don't know if I would say a family, but a company. It was us and them against the many problems that we had. So I think that you can see that on the film. I also selected a group of mainly theater actors, which was a different approach for me. When I started making films, I was very much afraid of actors. I was intimidated by actors. I liked to bring emotion to the screen through my camera and not them. But now I think that I became a director of actors. I love actors now, and this experience was amazing. Just trying to build within the little details a lot of layers to the characters and to the story. And there were times where I just watched the monitor and I was amazed, to see the little things that they brought into the film. Like he's sitting like that, he's, copying his mother. He's in the exact same pose, and they are amazing. And so they brought this amazing set of ideas. And
absolutely, I absolutely agree. They're really amazing, and the limping of Reinaldo all the time, it's really wonderful. As a last short question, because what I also found very impressive was the musical, the soundtrack, the sound and the music that was used in it, and a lot of tension, a lot of foreshadowing sounds to something. I wasn't sure, is it a machine sound, or what is it that maybe you can say something about music?
Well, Tomás Barreiro and me who is a musician, we have been collaborating, and we like to go crazy. The music was actually based on Gerardo Trejoluna, who is the protagonist, the main actor. He was rehearsing, and his father had an accordion. So he started playing the accordion in his house, and he sent through, a text message, some of the music that he had been doing with his accordion. And so I sent it to Tomás and said, look, he's doing this and that. Why don't we go and try to do like to bring an artificial sound to it, to an accordion. So we went through with electronic music, vocoders, and we made a lot of effects, but the actual music is that accordion that Gerardo played, and he sent through a text message, and we did just build on top of it. But I love that he's the main player of the music on the film, and of course Tomás is an amazing composer. But we wanted to also try to emulate the sounds of nature, the goats, but bring a sort of electronic goat to the film. So that was the thing. And also we spoke a lot about how does the universe sound, how this is not a film about a guy, this is a film about life and existence and humanity and living things. So how does that sound? And animals make amazing sounds. I mean, I've discovered that, and we are programmed to react to those sounds. If you hear a bee buzzing, it's tense. You need to, make it go away, because it's something that you're programmed to feel as tense. So we played a lot with that kind of things.
It was really fascinating, this musical score. So thank you very much for bringing this film to Panorama again, and I wish you all the best with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm very excited.